I'm a registered dietitian here with Gem Care Wellness. Today, I am going to be leading this webinar about building healthy habits specific to diabetes management. So, if you are living with diabetes, you already know it's not the one-time choices or decisions that make a difference in your control. It is the day-to-day, the habits that we build over time. So today we are going to be talking about habits, both good and bad, how to change habits, habits related to checking blood sugar, taking medication, choosing meals, moving your body, all of those things that create consistency over time. Our goal is to focus on building stability and consistency that feels doable. So, this is not about perfection, it is about progress that lasts. So, we'll talk about why consistency matters more than intensity. So, breaking down how we are building habits, why some habits stick and others don't, some of the common barriers that we see for standing in the way of consistent habit change, strategies for building healthy habits that are realistic and sustainable, and finally, talking about how small changes repeated daily significantly impact long-term outcomes. So, just like with any health goal, diabetes management is not about what happens in a one-time instance. It is about patterns, patterns over time. One high blood sugar does not confine your control. One low doesn't mean failure. Having one meal that you know is off plan or not ideal does not undo your progress. Consistency with things like monitoring your blood sugar, taking medication on time, self-awareness, those are the things that create stability. Those are the things that impact your long-term numbers, your long-term risk. So being aware that your day-to-day choices help predict longer-term trends, using that information to your advantage. So for example, if you rarely ever check your blood sugar, you may end up being surprised by your A1C. But if you are regularly monitoring your blood sugar or using your CGM data, you have more information, you have more predictability, and in turn, you know what to expect, which reduces the stress. I talk to some people who avoid going to the doctor, avoid getting their A1C checked because they're worried about what it will be. So, taking matters into your own hands and putting consistency on your side to help reduce that stress, to help improve your outcomes. That's our goal here today. So, when it comes to habits, both good and bad habits, they are formed through a neurological loop. That loop is a cue or a trigger, the action, which we'll refer to as the routine, and the reward or the reinforcement. It's worth noting that this applies to bad habits, and that term reward is not necessarily a positive thing. It could be a temporary relief from stress or a temporary distraction, which is what reinforces that behavior. So we'll look at a few different examples of both how we build positive habits and how we get stuck in negative habits, bad habits, and how we can change that. So this example here is using this habit loop to create a positive habit to check your blood sugar. So, checking your blood sugar when you wake up. The cue is waking up. The action or the routine that we're wanting to achieve is checking your blood sugar. And the reward is the peace of mind, knowing your numbers, being equipped with information. So when habits are attached to existing cues, they're more likely to stick. if you find that waking up, you forget, you don't think about it, you're in the process of building this neurological loop, which takes time before it becomes automatic, you might find that attaching that to something else that you do every day when you wake up would be helpful to you. So, one example of that would be every morning when I wake up, I make coffee. That is a habit that I have already established. I do it without thinking about it. So I may set my diabetes testing supplies next to the coffee pot. And as soon as I start my coffee, I sit down and check my blood sugar. I have that cue because I see it. I have the visual reminder because I'm doing something that I do every morning anyway. So sometimes it takes time to establish that habit, and it takes more mental energy to think about it and plan for it and execute it until this loop gets cemented in your mind and those neurons start firing together where it just becomes part of your day. Another example is, brushing your teeth before you go to bed. That might be a routine that you have established and have done your entire life. You don't even have to really think about it. It's just something you do. So success with habits is not just about willpower or motivation. It's about structure. If what you have been trying has not been working, adjusting that goal or that routine to help trigger that cue, that reminder for your brain to say, yeah, we need to do that thing we set out to do. So, habit stacking is a great tool for that, which we're going to talk about here in just a second. But I wanted to note what the term cue could be referred to as. So I mentioned trigger. This could be so many different things. This could be environmental. It could be a certain location. So, hey, when I sit down in my chair in the evening and watch TV, my brain is automatically thinking, I need a snack. And it's a combination of time of day, location, and watching TV. The three cues or triggers that in your brain has that loop started. And if we're trying to break a bad habit like snacking in front of the TV, we might have to alter the triggers or cues. We might change the location of where we relax in the evening. We might change our routine a little bit. So, brushing teeth before sitting down to watch television, finding a different activity. If watching TV is a strong cue or trigger for you to have a snack, maybe having something else to do in the evening. So, those are just a few examples of habits that you build, some intentionally, which the positive habits take a little bit more work and intention to build, and some of them unintentionally, which take a little bit more work and mental energy to break. But they all operate on this same loop. So being able to identify that and identify the cue or the trigger, identifying what the behavior is that you would like to change or the behavior that you would like to start, and then recognizing what the reward is. So, for example, with a bad habit, like smoking or emotional eating or whatever, the reward in that case is not necessarily positive over the long term, but the temporary positive reward of feeling some relief from stress or satisfying that craving. So using this same loop to identify and build a positive habit, just like we want to identify and break the negative habits that we have built over time. So again, not just about willpower or motivation, about structure. Okay, so motivation is a topic that comes up every single day in my health coaching with my clients. Why do I lose motivation? And it is nothing wrong with you as an individual. It is incredibly normal for motivation to come and go, just like waves in the ocean. They get stronger, they subside. We cannot rely solely on motivation to proceed with doing the things that we set out to do. If we only show up for work when we feel motivated to do so, that does not end well. If we only check our blood sugar when we feel like it, typically that's not enough. So it's real easy to feel motivated after something has happened. You've gone to the doctor, you've recently had a new diagnosis, you started using new technology like a new continuous glucose monitor or something has changed, and you have a little bit of excitement and motivation. But over time, that changes. Something might happen, life happens, like you get sick, you get busy, kids have things going on at school, your energy level drops, the seasons change, whatever. Things happen that affect your motivation. So, habits that rely on motivation alone are much less successful because when life happens, they fall to the wayside. Habits that are built into routine that don't require as much mental energy to expend are much more likely to be successful. So those are the type of habits we want to build intentionally. When you are managing diabetes, you are already required to make so many decisions and you have such a huge mental load. Taking some of that pressure off by building routines that work in your favor can help reduce some of that mental energy and that mental load. So, one barrier to success with goals is burnout. People experience burnout because of the culmination of decision fatigue, feeling frustrated either with unpredictable numbers or frustrated with lack of success with achieving the goal, feeling judged, emotional exhaustion. And primarily the one that sticks out to me the most in my experience as a dietitian is all or nothing thinking. That stands in the way and really creates burnout very quickly. When consistency slips, we let the entire goal fall to the wayside because it's not going the way we envisioned it should. So rather than defaulting to plan B or coming up with another way, we just say, oh, I failed. Forget it. Why bother? So it's rarely about knowledge or knowing what to do. It's usually about the capacity at which you can do it. When we're managing our health goals and work and family and all of the other aspects of life, it can feel overwhelming and it can be easy to get burned out if we have this vision of having to do everything perfectly. So we'll break down what that looks like in terms of goal setting and what can be more helpful. But recognizing some of the barriers without self-criticism is one of the first steps towards building sustainable habits. It's not just you. There's nothing wrong with you. It's everybody. And there's a reason it happens. So, building small, sustainable habits, keyword small, one thing at a time. So often we get the urge to want to overhaul our entire life, change all of our habits, whether it relates to diet or exercise or everything. Trying to do it all at once is going to be the biggest barrier of all. Trying to avoid all or nothing thinking and setting goals that are small, realistic, and doable can make all the difference in the world. So, setting goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, and realistic, rather than just having an idea in your head, I'm going to do better about checking my blood sugar. Breaking that down into a specific, measurable goal. For example, I'm going to check my blood sugar every weekday before breakfast. Your weekdays might be more structured than your weekends, so attaching that to a habit that you already have, setting your alarm on your phone to include a label, check your blood sugar, setting your supplies next to your coffee pot so you have that reminder, like I mentioned earlier. Being very specific and intentional about that goal rather than just a concept of I need to do better about checking my numbers, or I need to do better about physical activity. I need to be more active. Getting specific. I am going to walk for 10 minutes after dinner 3 times this week, instead of saying, I'm going to go to the gym for an hour every day, which maybe for some people is realistic. But if we're looking at that all or nothing example, if right now you're doing very little or no exercise, committing to an hour a day every day might feel out of reach. That might feel defeating if it's not realistic and doable. So starting small, meeting yourself where you are, and setting a goal that's entirely possible and doable can reinforce that positive feedback. You feel good. You might see an improvement in your blood sugar numbers. You feel accomplished. Exercise is good for both your mental and physical health. So there are a lot of reward systems involved. So you might tack it on to dinner, for example. Okay, here's a habit that I already have in place. I eat dinner every day. After dinner on several of those days, I'm going to go for a walk. Before I do anything else, I'm going for my walk. So small habits that we attach to other things are easier to repeat. We can always build on those habits. We can increase that walk from 10 minutes to 20 minutes once that's cemented in place. We could increase from 3 days a week to 4 or 5 days a week, but starting small and meeting yourself where you are now makes it much more doable, much more repeatable, and it becomes automatic, which then in turn just becomes part of your lifestyle rather than something that you have to think and work really hard to do. It's just what you do. So that's what we want to work towards. I mentioned that theory of habit stacking. So after this, I will do this. After I pour my coffee, I will pull up my CGM app and check my trends for the last 24 hours. After I brush my teeth at night, I go refill my water bottle. After dinner, I will get my supplies prepared for tomorrow, so I'm ready to go in the morning. Linking the new behaviors to the existing routines removes the guesswork. It's just part of your plan. You're not adding something new entirely, you're attaching it to something else that you're doing already. Okay. So, the power of consistent glucose monitoring. Consistency provides the feedback we need in order to adjust all of the things that impact our numbers. So, whether you're using a glucometer or a continuous glucose monitor, consistently seeing your numbers helps to identify patterns. You can learn how your meals or foods that you eat affect your blood sugar, how things like stress, sleep, exercise, illness, injury, all sorts of factors, how those things affect your blood sugar levels. The more you know, the better you can utilize that information to improve. And the goal is not to be constantly checking, but to have a routine established so that the feedback you're getting is helpful for you. Whether it's from their glucometer or the CGM, using that information to your advantage so that you reduce the surprise. Predictability reduces surprises. So we want to use our blood sugar monitoring to help predict how our blood sugar will react, learn from it, and predict how we can do that repeated action in the future to help continue to improve. Okay, so nutrition habits. Eating healthy does not require extreme restriction. And again, we completely want to avoid the all or nothing line of thinking when it comes to our diet. We are not striving for a perfect diet. We are working on building habits that work for you for blood sugar control. So choosing one or two small goals at a time is what is going to help with long-term success. So instead of a concept like, I need to eat more vegetables, getting specific with yourself to say, I'm going to make sure I have a vegetable every day at lunch and dinner. Instead of saying, I need to do better eating consistently and not skipping meals. I am going to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. A lot of people I talk to are so busy at work, it's hard for them to make time for a dedicated lunch break. Prioritizing that time to say, okay, my goal is to stop and eat lunch at noon or whatever time works for you. Um, Here's what might need to happen in order to make that a reality. So being specific and picking one or two small things at a time rather than I'm never eating sweets again. I need to completely eliminate all added sugar from my diet. We might identify, hey, I'm eating a lot of ice cream every evening. I'm going to start using a smaller bowl. I'm going to cut in half the amount of ice cream I have in the evening, or eventually I'm going to cut back to 2 days a week. And then going back to our loop, our reward loop, you can use that to help recognize the bad behavior or the bad habit that you are trying to change. Hey, every evening after dinner, we sit down in front of the TV and my husband gets out the ice cream. What steps in this process need to be altered to help change that loop? Okay, so good. So stable routines support more stable blood sugars, and that's what we're after, stability, not perfection, stability. Same line of thinking when it comes to exercise. So again, we're not focused on doing the most intense exercise. We want to focus on consistent exercise, breaking up periods of sitting, going for short walks throughout your workday. 10 minutes at a time adds up. Taking the stairs instead of the elevator, parking a little bit farther away, making movement part of your routine, not just when you are feeling stressed because your numbers are high. Doing it as part of your daily routine and your daily habit, that makes it sustainable and provides much better outcomes. Consistent exercise can help improve insulin sensitivity over time, help improve your blood sugar readings, help improve your stress management, energy level. Exercise is powerful in a lot of ways. So we want to use that to our advantage and build habits that are reflective of the outcomes we're trying to achieve. So again, not just I'm going to walk more, get specific. I'm going to walk 10 minutes every day after I eat my lunch. You're attaching that to a habit you already have. I eat lunch every day. I'm going to tack this on as part of my routine and build my way from there. And there will be setbacks. We can count on that. That is one thing that is for sure. Things will happen. Life happens. If we could put life on hold and just focus on our health goals, it would be a lot easier. But since that's not an option, and we're doing this alongside work and kids and family and life, there will be off days. There will be missed medications. There will be skipped workouts. There will be unplanned meals. Maybe you end up stopping for fast food or eating out when that wasn't part of the plan. So the difference between progress and burnout is how quickly you reset. And a big part of that is your mindset about your goals. So again, avoiding that all or nothing thinking. If your goal is perfection, and something does not go as planned, that can completely derail you. And it can be very hard to get back on track when the expectation is that getting back on track means doing it perfectly. So avoid the all or nothing thinking. When something does not go as planned, what's the next step? What do I do now? What is the habit that I'm working on, and how do I get closer to that? So choosing one thing at a time to focus on, attaching it to an existing routine that's already just part of your day, track it for several weeks, adjust if needed. If it is not working, I talk to people every day who say, okay, I'm going to exercise first thing in the morning before work. They come up with a plan, we lay it all out, and then when we meet again, they say, it's not working. The morning is way too hectic. I'm too tired. I'm whatever. So we might readjust. We might adjust the time of day, the type of exercise, the number of days per week. There are a million different ways you can modify and adjust that goal as long as you don't abandon it. To just say, hey, I tried that and it didn't work is not a solution. I tried it this way and it didn't work. So here's how I'm going to adjust it to try again and make sure it works in the future. And we want those goals to be small and doable because we want you to be able to meet them with certainty. Meeting a goal builds momentum and builds confidence. We need you to be able to meet that goal confidently week in and week out, and then we can adjust from there. So, like I mentioned earlier, instead of committing to an hour at the gym every day, committing to two 20-minute walks per week, and then working your way up to 3 times a week or whatever the case may be, wherever you end up, is a lot more rewarding and builds a lot more momentum than setting a goal that's just out of reach and feeling defeated. So meet yourself where you are and work your goals from there. Small daily habits repeated over and over improve your A1C, improve your time in range, lowers your stress around decision making, increases your confidence in your ability to manage your diabetes and manage your health goals, reduces risk of long-term complications. Even if the change feels incredibly small, it is movement in the right direction. Rather than staying stagnant or moving the opposite way, those little bitty small changes, 1% day in and day out, make leaps and bounds of compounded changes over months and years. So when I talk to people day in and day out who are frustrated that their goal only produce or their actions, their goals only produced, 2 pounds of weight loss per month, when we compound that out over the course of a year, no one is upset if they've lost 24 pounds a year, but almost everyone is upset if they're only losing 2 pounds per month or a half a pound per week, for example. So same theory. If you're seeing some marginal changes as a result of small habits that you have built, keep going. That is exactly what we're looking for. And that results in big changes over time. So, a few takeaways: consistency over intensity, consistency over everything. When we strive for consistency rather than perfection or trying to take it on all at once, we are much more successful. Habits are formed through structure, not just through motivation or willpower. Start small and attach new behaviors to existing routines. Do not stay off track when you have a setback. And I say when, not if, because life happens. When you have a setback, get back to your routine. Do not let it derail you for any long period of time. Just keep going. And again, progress, not perfection. Diabetes is not about doing everything right every day. It is about building systems and habits that support you, even when it's challenging. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Well, if there are no questions, I will wrap up. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate your time and attention. Bye.